Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. It's good to be back. Thank you for the amazing team every week that when I am traveling, and I will be here for a while now. Thank you for letting me be gone so much this summer. And team, really, you guys do such a great job. Karen, your talk, everyone, your support, just lovely. I was at Big Sky Retreat in Big Sky, Montana. We had a good group from Unity of Houston there. We had a couple dozen of us. We had 130 people that climbed up the mountain for some spiritual food and nourishment. And what a wonderful thing. And next year, we hope to have an even more expansive and hopefully pandemic-free experience there on the mountain in Big Sky. And I do encourage you to participate in getting spiritual food and self-care in that way. It's so good. Speaking of food and self-care, did you know that if you eat an entire cake, it counts as one piece if you don't cut it? Did you know that? So there you go, self-care. I hope that will serve somebody today on your path to enlightenment. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I want to speak to that for a moment. I chose for my title today, Praying for Peace in Times of Trouble, and I chose that title weeks ago knowing that this would be the day after the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And yesterday morning we had a wonderful, beautiful service, a memorial service for Marlene York yesterday here in the sanctuary, a 46-year member of our community. And before that, as I was preparing at home, I was watching some of the coverage and was really moved. I was, of course, brought back to my own memories 20 years ago, and that morning for me, my partner at the time was a journalist and woke me saying that there was something that happened in New York. A plane had flown into a building, and I don't know if you remember that, but a few weeks before that in Austin, a person had flown a small plane into the IRS building. And so that was the image that I woke up with. I was like, oh, something like that is happening. That's terrible. And then I woke up and the horror of it began to reveal itself. And like many of you, I'm sure I was glued to the television as the second plane hit the second tower, and then the towers fell. Some of you may remember in June, I had some of my college friends here with me. I've been friends with them for 35 years and sat here in the front row. And my friend Janice, who is here, is an attorney and has lived in New York for many years. And she worked very near the World Trade Center in the financial district. And I know a lot of people were trying to reach people on cell phones and couldn't because the system was overloaded. And so I was terrified for my friend and couldn't reach her. And then miraculously, she picked up and she was okay. You saw those images of people running from the debris cloud as the towers fell. She was one of those people covered in debris, and she twisted her ankle and fell, and somebody reached out from a dry cleaners and pulled her into the store for safety. She and her partner, Peter, were not able to return to their home for months. They lived right down there. That was just my personal story. I remember I was in New York a few weeks later, and I don't know how much later, but the pictures in the subway stations of all the people that were missing, loved ones were still searching for them. I went as close as I could get to Ground Zero, and there was a huge chain link fence surrounding the site, and someone had created a makeshift altar in one of the chain link fences, and there were flowers and ribbons and notes, and I found this beautiful handmade book from Miss Smith's first grade class in Tyler, Texas, offering wishes and prayers for the recovery of New York City. Man, I cried yesterday again watching. And the part that got me the most was and also I don't want to just say New York, of course, Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania as well, those other places attacked. But in New York, and I've been there many times now since to the memorial, and if you're ever there, it's so beautiful. I really encourage you to go. It's so well done. And the original footprints of the towers are now fountains. And it's just beautiful with all the names of those who died there surrounding, and people place flowers by those names. Just beautiful. And yesterday morning, the family members were reading all of those thousands of names with some music. And at the end of reading a list of names, the family member would say the last name and say it, and that's my uncle, that's my husband, that's my son. And just speak a word about how much they were missed, how proud they would be of their kids. And so I just let myself feel the pain and the loss of it. And this is what I've been learning. And I think I've been taught this for decades, and I'm just learning at a new level now, that if we don't resist the pain and the grief, we're able to just be with it. Don't eat over it, or drink over it, or drug over it, or sex over it, or internet over it. just be with it. We stand. We're not destroyed by it. We're able to just be, and we open, and then it moves, and we're free. And we're larger for having been present to it. You know, I think that sometimes in unity we are such a positive faith that sometimes we think that we can just positive and affirm away every difficult experience in life, and it's not meant to be that way. We don't say that if you begin to practice unity principles in all of your affairs that you will never have a hard day, you'll never experience grief or loss. What we say is God is present with you, and you'll be able to access that infinite presence, intelligence, and power in everything you go through. That's the miracle of it, is that through our faith and through this teaching of our oneness with infinite power, Ken, that song, that poem, you cannot exhaust infinity. We'll never get to the bottom of how good God is, even in the most difficult and painful experiences of life. And I was thinking, too, about how, this was an attack on an ideology, on an idea, on a symbol of America, but it wasn't the ideology or symbol that was destroyed. It was families. It was people. And I was so grateful 20 years ago and yesterday that it came back to those individual lives and families. That's where the attention was, not on any ideology or political view, but this happened to people and to families. Today I'm going to talk about prayer. And I want to talk about the life of prayer, what it does for us. We focus sometimes on praying for conditions in the world, and I'm not saying we don't do that, we do. But I'm going to redirect our attention today to focus that the change we seek to accomplish in prayer, it begins here, at the individual level. At the only individual level that I have any say-so about, and that's my consciousness, my mind, my voice, my words, my actions in this world. That's where I want to focus us today as we're talking about prayer. Kelly O'Hara, I'm a Broadway nut. I'm just loving it. She's an amazing leading lady in Broadway. I've seen her in several productions. And she sang during all of that yesterday. She sang Rodgers and Hammerstein, You'll Never Walk Alone. So simply, so beautifully. You know that song? Ken sings it amazingly, sometimes for us here. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high. And don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. You're going to get through it. The storm comes to what? Pass. Everything comes to pass, not to stay. And if we're willing to remain anchored in our faith, remain present to what is here, it will pass and we will be larger. The end of that song, walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Sometimes when difficulties appear in our lives, the temptation is strong to abandon our faith and just give up and say, well, I was never meant to have anything good anyway. Wah, wah, wah. You know, that's what happens sometimes. The very time we need our faith and it's most useful and effective is the time that people quit. They stop praying. They stop coming to their spiritual community. They stop their affirmation, their meditation. And I know it's hard. Oh, believe me. I know how difficult it is to quiet the mind when it is racing with pain and rage and anxiety. I know. And you know what I've learned? Do it anyway. Sit your butt in the chair for 20 minutes anyway, even with your mind raging and anxious. Do it anyway. Keep showing up. Walk on, walk on. I reached out to my college friends and just shared some of the memories I just shared with you. And Janice she said, I'm crying reading this. She said, I'm so grateful that we have been walking our lives side by side for 37 years. We keep walking. We keep walking. You know that passage, every minister has used this many times, I think, in their sermon, but when it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it does not say I pitch a tent there. I walk through it with God, and hopefully I wish all of you the kind of relationships of support that I have in my life. I am so beautifully supported, many of them in this church, in this community. People who are willing to walk with me, who are willing to see me be less than ministerial at times. Very rarely. Okay. People who are willing to let me just be Michael, a soul, doing his best to walk through this life. All right, prayer. I know we're going to talk about that at some point, aren't I? Yeah, so that's what I want to say, that sometimes we lose faith at the moment that it's most useful. And particularly around what are our main practices in unity, our spiritual practices are meditation and prayer. And those are both so extremely helpful when we go through difficult things. And prayer, particularly the way we teach it in New Thought, is that we are a part of the one life of God, and the one mind of God is our mind as well. And that thought is creative and active and energetic and powerful. And if we can align our mind with the mind of God and speak our truth, conditions change. If we're so disgusted and disillusioned by conditions, why do we stop praying? Why don't we keep praying for God to show up? Why don't we keep seeing the possibility beneath the difficulty instead of giving into, well, it's just difficult? So I'm inviting every one of us to, put on our big girl and big boy pants. That when the going gets tough, keep going. Walk on with hope in your heart. Keep praying, keep meditating, keep reaching out for support from your spiritual community. That is the time, and particularly because we do believe, and I have experienced it again and again and again, that when I bring the difficulty and the pain to the knowledge and the reality that God is all there is, it shifts. Things change. There was a time when my money was a mess. I won't even give you the details. It was bad. It took me a long time in these churches and in these classes to not only get the idea that God is abundant, that I can tap into that abundance if I can change my thoughts, but to practice it, to keep practicing it, and it changed. And I saw miraculous demonstrations. Seriously, money just like falling from the sky at times. I remember one time, I've been taught that there is no large or small in God. was like, that sounds interesting. I don't quite get what that is. And then one day as I was working my prosperity teaching, I received 2 unexpected checks in the mail, one for $8,000 and one for $17, and they felt the same. It came true that this principle I'd been taught was like, oh, these are both blessings. I'm in the flow of good. It was amazing. Still had many more years of practice and healing, not only to manifest money, but also to manifest my own stewardship of that money, to be wise in my choices, to save, to invest. It's been an ongoing journey of shifting my consciousness of the good of God. God, here's the thing. Whatever you're looking for, God's already said yes. The universe has already said yes. Pouring forth infinite blessings, you cannot exhaust infinity. God is always seeking to give you all that your heart desires. Jesus said that it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. God has already said yes and has already given it. You can't receive it yet because of your consciousness. You have not yet opened your mind wide enough and strong enough to receive the blessing. And so you're still walking around acting like a poor person, even though you're a daughter of God. You're a daughter of the infinite good. You're a son of infinite wealth. You don't know it yet. And I don't mean just keep talking about money. We sometimes get a reputation as being the prosperity and success church. That's fine. I don't mind that. That people think that about us. The same principle applies in all areas of living. It's just those are easy to kind of measure. And we can actually begin to, my teacher always taught me that money is a great way to begin your spiritual walk because it just doesn't lie. What you have in the bank account is what you have in the bank account. And if we can begin to use prayer to expand our awareness of the good of God, not out there, but in here, then we will begin to see the universe mirror it back to us in greater and greater ways. As we heal here, we experience the healing out here. And I saw this, Derek Rydall's, I knew him as a songwriter. He wrote the song, Move in the Direction of Your Dreams, which I recorded and I love singing, but he's a coach and a teacher and author. And I saw this yesterday, flow, row. You need both intention and surrender to get where you're going. You see, there is part of it that is in our intention and our purposeful action, and there is part of it that is opening to the universe. It's not surrender or affirm the good, it's both. And to know which to do in the moment. And this is from Panache Desai. God gives you opportunities to grow into what you've asked for. God doesn't give you what you ask for. Do I need to say that again? God gives you opportunities to grow into what you ask for. God doesn't give you what you ask for. Prayer changes us. We heal our own self-perception and image. And then we are different and we experience life differently. And so as we are looking upon our broken and troubled world, I invite you to find the healing that is being asked for within yourself. Years ago, my friend Maggie was experiencing some trouble in her relationship. And if you're watching, hi, honey. And she went to her minister, Reverend Mary Murray Shelton, and she talked about just how awful the relationship was and then Mary looked at her and said, do you see how you're holding him? Do you get the less than the wholeness of God way you're describing the situation? We do the work here. We change. I love this prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, To be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Do you know who wrote that prayer? No. It's called the St. Francis Prayer, but it was actually not written by St. Francis. It came many centuries later. But it was written in the spirit of Francis of Assisi. And do you know about this amazing man? Medieval monk and priest from the 13th century, early 13th century. A man born to wealth and privilege. His father was a wealthy Italian merchant of fabric, and he traded and he loved all things French, so he went and got himself a pretty French wife and lived there in Assisi and was quite successful. And raised his son in this atmosphere of wealth and possibility. And when Francis, his first name was Giovanni. His French mother named him Giovanni, but then his father said, not French enough, let's name him Francois, Francesco, Francis. And the word also, Francis, also means man of freedom. And that's the way Francis lived as a young man. He used that wealth and privilege. Wine, women, and song, amen. Just looking for pleasure and anything, and because he was told he could have anything he wants, and so he began to take anything he wanted. Anybody else know anybody like that? You don't have to raise your hands if that's your son. You don't have to do that if that's you. But there was something in Francis that was destined for more, and somehow he knew that. Even while he was still in that phase of his young life, working for his father in the very high-end cloth shop there in Assisi. He had customers, he was working with them, and then a beggar, a dirty man, needy and thin, came into the shop and was trying to push his way to get attention, to beg for alms. And Francis pushed him away and said, wait your turn. I'm waiting on these people. And the man, ashamed and disgusted, ran from the shop. And something pricked at Francis's consciousness in that moment. Something awoke to the disparity between his wealth and what the world was experiencing, how other people were experiencing. And he left the customers, he grabbed a handful of coins, and he chased the man down and gave them to him. And that was just the beginning of some shift that needed to happen in Francis. Over time, he began to see through the falseness of this world that he was raised in. He began to commune with nature. He began to see through the falseness of the crusade, these holy wars. And he himself experienced life in one of these crusades, and it changed him further. He was taken ill, and after that time, he began to forsake the family's pew in the beautiful, bright city church, and he found the old ruined churches outside of the city and began to worship with the poor and lowly monks there and priests. He began to see that the wealth was not being equally distributed through his country. He forsook his father's name and inheritance, and he founded an order based upon poverty. Now, we don't think of it as poverty because we're the Success and Prosperity Church, but not placing all of our good in earthly good. That's really the message of Francis. He was eventually his order was recognized by the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church, and a reform happened where suddenly there was an awareness of caring for the poor and the needy where there had been none before. An amazing story, an amazing man who was willing to be the change he wished to see in the world. You know, that's from Gandhi, another man who was willing to step into a broken and troubled world and offer a different way. This is not the end. Since the time of Francis, there have been many wars and injustices, much suffering. And that does not negate the work that he did. You know, it's like none of us is going to get the answer to fix it all for all time. That's too much pressure on anybody, even a saint. But to be willing to be a part of God's solution for humanity, to be willing to be the hands and feet of God where you live, to be willing to step into this possibility teaching here and here. Daniel Horan he wrote a beautiful book about Francis, and he said that. He said this: "There's nothing wrong with wanting to be understood, desiring to be loved, or seeking forgiveness for those we've hurt. But living after the example of Francis, whose life was modeled on the life of Jesus Christ, means putting others first and caring for the rest of creation in a way that reflects our interdependence and family relationship. It's a call to remember who we really are in the eyes of God and see others from that same perspective and act in a way fitting our identity as human beings." This is the call of St. Francis, is that we remember who we are in the eyes of God, that we are made in the image and the likeness of perfect love, and we are here to reveal it into our earthly reality. Would you pray with me now? Use me, O God. Show me what I must do to be who you know me to be. This is our prayer. One life, infinite, eternal, abundant and powerful and loving. This is the life of all. This is the life of me. Knowing this unity, it becomes effortless for me to speak my truth, that there is an awakening happening in the hearts and souls of men and women who are waking up as Francis woke up, waking up as Gandhi woke up, waking up as Jesus of Nazareth woke up to be who God knows us to be. People of generosity and compassion, people of great love, people willing to change, to be the change that they wish to see. So show me, God, what I must do. Reveal to me the thoughts that are mine to release. I now see that this is happening for us, that our words are heard differently, that we are willing to change, willing to grow up into that which you have called us to be. We are willing. We are willing. Use us, oh God. Show us what we must do. I release this prayer, trusting that it is already acted upon by that beautiful servant, the law of mind action, already creating in form what I've spoken here in word. It is done. I let it be, and so it is. Amen. You are amazing. If you don't know that, I do. Let me know it for you today. And if no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.